It's Roger and James here from the DisKingdom Podcast. In this episode, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about Star Wars miniature games. Something that I've recently gotten into. I've literally, in the last couple of weeks, I've been interested in it for a few months actually. Obviously, being into like collectibles and stuff, I've been kind of trying to keep my finger on, what's going on where and what's coming out, and I've been aware of like Fantasy Flight Games for a while and what they've been. Different things coming out. But with Star Wars Legion, their new like miniature game, I think because the hype around that was a lot bigger. There was stories going out on video game sites like Polygon and Kodaku, and it wasn't. I think they were popping up in places I wouldn't normally associate with that kind of thing. So I started becoming aware of it, and so obviously started reporting on it. And from my point of view, I was a bit like, these look quite cool. I quite like the idea of this, but if I'm on my own, I can't play it. Just bottom line is like these things aren't really going to be too good on my own. So I started looking around to see if there was any groups around near me. Some of them did. I mean, like my local, my nearest city is a university town. There's at least 3 club or sort of shops that sell bits. There's even a board game cafe, a restaurant in our city now, because it's becoming more and more popular. There's been a big buzz. I know when I was up at the Toy Fair earlier the year, there was a lot of discussion about board games becoming more popular because people wanting to disengage from their phones, or engage with other people, and it's becoming bigger thing. And so I found, and I was messaging a few different groups and stuff to find out if they were playing Star Wars. I did find one. A friend of mine was going to it for Warhammer. So I've been along to it a couple of times, and they've been really welcoming. They've been showing me all the games, doing demos. It's been great. It's been a really nice experience. It's been quite nice as well, just having a couple hours away, turning, your phone's in your pocket, you're not on the internet, you're not checking stuff, and you're physically actually integrating with a product, you're learning something new, but also you're talking to somebody different, and if there's other people, I mean, this room was like 50 people just all playing different games and lots of Warhammer and stuff. So as part of it, it's like, I was a little bit like, oh, I don't know, I have to go out and I have to talk to people. I'm not sure if I like the idea of that. But at the end of the time, it was a bit like, yeah, I could do with probably getting out for a couple hours and just kind of stepping away from behind the screen, because you find that it's so easy to do it. And I've gone off and brought some core sets to sort of get into it, and I'll be picking up the new releases. And you're going to start seeing content on the site anyway, because at the end of the day, we're all about collectibles and merchandise, etc. So if I'm buying them anyway, it might as well make some content out of it. It just makes sense from my point of view. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun, really.
Yeah. So I have not been engaged in this. I am aware of Legion, and I was also aware of the space battles one. I even in like bookstores here, you would see the expansion packs where it'd be like, here's Red 5 X-Wing, or even some of the other stuff they brought in, like Dash Rendar's ship from Shadows of the Empire, and all sorts of extended universe stuff, which was great. But I am aware that there are gaming shops near me, and there will also be gaming shops near me when I move. I think Denver actually is the hometown for Mile High Comics, which is one of the premier gaming and comic stores, or at least well known in the States. So if I wanted to, I could find a group to play it. I'm just leery of that cost investment, though, because now, mind you, I've played Magic the Gathering. I also played the original Star Wars Decipher card game back in the day, and so it's not just the cost, because those are not cheap games at all. But these feel even more expensive than the card games, because you get the miniatures, of course. And just to clarify, these are not like the HeroClix minifigures. When you buy a set, you know what you're getting, right? You buy the General Veers pack. You're getting General Veers, and you're getting a couple of troopers to go along with them, and you're getting the cards that support them. So it's not randomized. It's not like Magic the Gathering or HeroClix
Star Wars
or that kind of
Destiny,
thing.
which is their card game, is blind
Card
dice.
and dice game.
Yeah.
Which is weird. but
yes,
you know.
I have got stuff. I have not played it. It was on one of the. I managed to get a cheap starter pack on over Easter, but it's on our list of things to play. I thought I'll pick up the core sets. You can at least do it. Whereas, I think that's the thing. There's so much stuff to do. I mean, I played, but there's also a bit of a difference between like the board game element of like Imperial Assault to like X-Wing, or I mean, there's some other games I haven't even played yet, like Armada, and that looks even bigger.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the X-Wing game, or I'm sorry, I don't actually know the name of the space one, but I'm going to call it the X-Wing game.
Yeah.
The figures look awesome, and as a fan of Star Wars vehicles are specifically like the area, the X-Wings, the A-Wings, TIE fighters, snow speeders, all that stuff. I love all that. So even just getting the little figures as a collector is cool. But, oh, man, both you and I are moving, and having to pack all those dang things. I'm glad I didn't actually start collecting them because I don't know how I would transport them. But
yeah, I'm going in with this a little bit different because these are collectibles that I use. I'm going to be using at least once a week, right? So I'm going to buy boxes that have foam things that you store them in. And these are probably going to live in a car most of the time because there's that part of me as well that's getting to this thing of having collectibles and merchandise that actually gets used. It's one of the things I've been loving about buying Lego and building Lego is I actually get to interact with it.
Yeah.
I actually get to spend time with this toy or this piece of equipment and build it. It's the same thing with the video games, etc. You have to put time in to engage with it. When I buy an action figure, that's it. I'm not playing with them anymore like I used to. So like with Lego and these miniatures and stuff, there's that thing of I actually have to do something with them. And that's becoming a little bit more like I'm getting some use out of this. This is why in some ways I like Lego Dimensions and Disney Infinity was you were getting something more than just a pop vinyl on a shelf.
Right. Yeah, and Lego has actually recognized that as well because they're getting the brickheads, which are basically not direct competition with Funko, but the idea is very similar. But when you get your Funko, it's a little figure. It sits there. Maybe it's a bobblehead, so maybe you can like jiggle it a little bit. But the brickheads, same basic idea, but you have to assemble it. So even if all it does is sit on your shelf, at least you've had that experience of building it. And so I can see where you're coming from that because for games. Yeah, okay, you get the little X-Wing and it's overpriced because it's a little figure. It's only like that big and it's $15 or whatever the UK equivalent is. And you're like, man, that's really expensive. But you get to play with it. You get an actual use. It's not just you sitting in your room going like that. No, you're sitting down with someone. You're playing a game against them. And you can keep using that figure. It doesn't get destroyed at the end of the game unless you're playing a really violent version of it.
Yeah.
So you get actual use out of it, and it makes sense because you now have a cool-looking figure, and it's functional.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely down with that. But, again, you have to have space for it.
Yes. It's going to be interesting. I mean, going forward, my plan is to kind of play all of them. There was some like Marvel stuff that's kind of floated around. I've seen HeroClix, but it seems a bit like that. Not really hitting any points. I mean, I've seen hardly anything in any of the stores near me. There's nobody really talking about it. That kind of feels like, it seems like in some ways Marvel haven't really kind of gone down that proper line of doing the miniature stuff because Harry Potter are doing one soon.
I feel like they've probably explored the idea, because Marvel's already involved with HeroClix.
Yeah.
In fact, they were the first HeroClix, or at least one of the first. So I feel like they would have at least talked to them about doing a Star Wars version of it, and for whatever reason they decided against it. There have been plenty of offshoots of HeroClix. Now I think they're just kind of a general thing. But yeah, they clearly went with this one instead, probably because it is a slightly more premium model. The HeroClix, probably owing to the fact that they're randomized and you don't really buy the character that you want, tend to be fairly low quality. The figures are plastic. They're painted by a robot that maybe isn't quite as accurate as it could be, so they're kind of bland. Faces don't have features, or they have the giant bug eyes because that's how they draw them. These are much higher quality figures. They're better constructed, they're better painted, and that might have been part of what Lucasfilms was looking for when they were shopping around for a game.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see what's going to be going on with this one and seeing how it goes. I'm looking forward to kind of trying them out, and there's new waves coming all the time, and it's just like part of me as well of like, I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, I gotta go out but at the same time it's like, no, I'm looking at the interaction and the going out and speaking to people is actually it's pushing me to do stuff outside of the screen and away from the couch and just getting away, because I think that's the biggest problem is as we become, and it's why it's become so popular. I mean, there's some board games like the Deadpool Monopoly, there's a new Infinity War game with Thanos and stuff. These are just more traditional board games. And yeah, I mean, even my wife and stuff have said, like, well, eventually when we get our own house, to have a table where we can, a kitchen table where we can actually play board games, and because it's so easy, just sit there flicking through your iPad, and everyone sat there on iPads and stuff, and I don't know. I think board game there was something literally in the Toys News web the other day about how people are looking to this and like going, yeah, we need this kind of disconnect a little bit.
The other way it has manifested completely arbitrarily in the last couple of years is adult coloring books.
Yes.
And the way that phrases it sounds like we're talking like rated X stuff. No, it's just coloring books that are more complex than the ones you get for kids. They've smaller areas to color in, maybe more intricate designs, and you literally will just have adults sitting around with colored pencils or markers or whatever.
My wife has
for a couple
bucks.
Yeah, and it sounds silly. I personally haven't done it. I don't have any coloring books, but I totally understand why people are doing it, because it is not technology in any way. You're not being constantly harassed by your phone buzzing. There's nobody talking into your ear every 10 seconds. It's just your brain's turned off or you're decompressing from the day and you're just coloring the book. And this is not all that different from that, except you're doing it with other people there as well, which is a good thing. We're social animals. We're supposed to be with other people.
It's just kind of like, it's just kind of stuff I'll be like, okay, let's have a bit of sort of say what's going on, because it's going to be something I'll be doing a lot more of, and just as I said, it's getting out there and doing something a bit different and pushing the envelope a bit and trying something different out, and I really enjoy playing the games, and this is funny because we've mentioned before. I mean, I generally despise turn-based games on my phone or on consoles. I hate them. I cannot stand playing a video game where I'm being forced to wait for somebody else to take a turn. But when I'm playing it with somebody and playing a board game or playing a minute, it feels completely natural. It's quite it feels totally fine and normal, and it's the interaction and but when I'm playing a mobile game, it's like I don't need to do this. It's like a different part of my head.
Just walk over and punch him.
Yeah.
Just walk over and punch him.
Yeah. So then they go, right, now you hit me. But when you're playing a board game, it's again because it's something that you've been taught from such a young age that's normal for that. You have to take your turn. That's how the game works. That's how, and over time you strategize and it's and you work things out. Whereas when you're playing a mobile game, it doesn't really have that same impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of weird because when you're standing there, you're at the table. I've done Magic tournaments before, and I was a judge at the shop that I worked at, so I've got a lot of experience with that. So much, maybe not this game specifically, but there is something very different between playing it on a computer screen, kind of disconnected. Even if you're playing against a human, even if you're doing a multiplayer game against a human, there's a very big difference between being separated by a screen and sitting there and staring them in the face, watching them try to figure out what their next move is going to be, or them watching you. Maybe they're heckling you good-naturedly, maybe not good-naturedly, who knows. But there's an experience to it, and there's definitely a draw to that. For me personally, I'm probably not going to get into this game, but that's because of the cost investment in it. Not just money, but also time. These aren't unpainted figures, so it's not like Warhammer where you also have to paint your figures, otherwise you look like...
Legion, you have to paint them. Imperial
Assault... okay, I take that back then.
Legion, you have to assemble them and paint them. Imperial Assault, they're assemblable, you've got to paint them. X-Wing and Armada come pre-done.
Okay, so I was thinking of X-Wing. I was thinking of the space game. I did not realize that the Warhammer-esque game required. So that is another thing that some people like myself, I'm kind of like, no, I don't have the coordination. I don't have the time to paint them. So I would feel like the lazy guy with the unpainted figures at the thing that everyone's probably laughing at in the corner. However, if you are creative in that way and you have the time or the interest in doing that, that is another aspect of the game where you can totally get involved.
And some people love the painting more than they actually like playing the game.
I can totally understand that. I have a former coworker who was very big into Warhammer 40K, and he would bring his figures in every once in a while. And he'd show them off. I'm like, I know very little about how to play Warhammer, but seeing the paint jobs that he put on these things were fantastic. It's like, all right, well, I've got this Space Marine right here, and I've got this Space Marine right here, and they're part of the same battle group, so I gave them both the same insignia on their pauldron. I'm like, that's really cool. So there's a lot of creative options here.
Lots of different things, but we'll have to know if you guys, do you play miniatures, do you do it yourself, or have you been like put off by it, by the costs, or going to the club? Because I'll be honest, going to the club the first time, it's like starting a new school or starting a new, that kind of, the first few times they're all very welcoming and they all, and it was great. But that initial first thing, you felt a bit odd and like, oh, okay, and it was along the lines of, if it went really badly, I'm never coming back, and that's the kind of, or I'll be gone in 10 minutes. That was basically, like if you sat there in the corner for 10 minutes and 15 minutes and no one talks to you, you've got to try and talk to people as well. You've got to put the effort in. But it can go the other way if you're feeling, but at the same time, that's the point of pushing to start, new friendships and doing things.
And I will caution people, it depends entirely on your local gaming group. So this is not a broad statement. This is not a everything is this way. But you can enter a situation. Like when I lived in West Virginia for a little while, they only had one shop in the area. I visited it exactly once because I walked in and I was ready to play some Magic the Gathering. And the people just looked at me like, whoa, who's this guy? What's this outsider doing here? Don't interact, don't talk, don't make eye contact. And I sat down, I played one match, felt very not welcome there, and I never went back. Yeah. And now that's, this will kind of go a little into uncomfortable territory, but I'm obviously a white male, so I'm target audience for all this stuff. If you are a woman or a player of color, these places can definitely be hostile environments, which is a very big problem and is getting better, but it is something to be aware of.
Yes, it is that kind of situation really, and it depends on, every club's going to be different. There are lots of different clubs and stuff going on, but then again, like recently, one of my local stores, they put on an X-Wing tournament, and then they're doing like an Armada one, and they got like hundreds of people taking part, and there's very much lots of people. And again, it's what you put in, what you get out of it, and sometimes it's not going to work. It depends on the people and all the rest of it. And that's why probably going through Facebook groups or forums first and introducing yourself can help. It helped with me because I'd already kind of introduced myself and said what I was after and what I wanted to do. So and then a few people from there spoke to me, and then they sought me out when I went there because they said pop along and speak to us. There again, they're after new people to play as well. They want new people to talk, play the game with, because they need, the clubs don't work if there's no one to play, and they need new people coming in. It's just that thing as well. And some of them can be socially awkward, and some, these kind of things as well. Some of them can have that issue of, they're going there for the same reason as well, of trying to help them get out of there, and that's it's not a thing of like every person there is like that, but you are gonna have that in these kind of, because it attracts that kind of person.
It definitely does, and again, very much stressing this is not everybody. In fact, I would even say not even the majority. The vast majority of players are perfectly normal. They will interact with you no matter who you are in a totally normal, perfect way. It's that 5 or 10% who cast a bad light on everything else. Encountered them many times as a judge, encountered them many times running tournaments in a shop, and they can put such a negative spin on it so quickly if you don't clamp down on it. And mind you, for myself, I was a judge in like 2005.
Yeah.
So we're talking more than a decade ago. It has gotten better.
Did you have a big red buzzer? Or a big X above your head?
No, wrong judge. I am not Simon Cowell, and I'm glad I'm not. No. But, you know, it is one of those things. Like you said, there are a lot of socially awkward people involved. It can be hostile. It is all going to come down to your local group. I highly encourage anyone, if you are interested in these games, if you're interested in Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Mech Warrior, Battletech, actually, I should say, Warhammer 40K, check out your local shop.
Yeah. I mean, I know when I will go to cinema sometimes, and I walk past the Games Workshop store in the evening, it's packed with people playing, and it's a big community. But I'd love to know what you guys think of it. Are you taking part in it? Do you want to get in part of it? Why have you not? Things like that. Let us know in the comments below. You can also go check us out over at DisKingdom.com. You can subscribe, like, follow, etc. James, where can they find you?
Find me heroiclegacy.com.
And on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back soon. Later.